What's up, Outliers? Welcome to a follow along video. We're going to be going over a mobility for the shoulders. Now, it doesn't really matter the sport if we're on a mountain bike, a motocross bike, BMX, snowboarding, whatever it is, the shoulders are a big part, and we also want to work to try and bulletproof the shoulders as much as we can. So first things first is the shoulder is a very important big joint. It comes off the exoskeleton. It actually is slightly free floating in a way because we have our clavicle or collarbone coming off of the sternum, and then that's about the only connection it actually has with our spine and our main skeleton. So that ball and socket joint of the glenoid joint is actually coming off of the shoulder blade, which is a free floating bone in our back. So it's a really unique joint. So it has a lot of ranges of motion: internal, external rotation, circumduction, abduction, adduction, flexion, extension. So the joint is all over the place, which is why we need to do our best to try and first regain all the mobility that we can in it, and then second, also strengthen the shoulder throughout all of those ranges of motion that it is capable of. But for most people, these joints tend to be a little bit limited on the range of motion that they're actually capable of doing. So we're going to focus on that highly today. And first things first, we're gonna stretch one of the bigger muscles in the body, which is our lats. So all we need to do this is the floor, very simple. Now, when getting into a position here, we can go elevated on something, or we can go just down on the floor. We're just gonna go on the floor and keep it simple. So down onto the elbows is where we're gonna go first. And while we're in this position, we're going to back the butt backwards, and that's going to then help us bring our hands up overhead into what would be a prayer position or a shark fin position. And while we're doing this, we're gonna maintain more of a rounded back because that allows us to stay in the lats. If we're to drop down into more like a cow position here, we're gonna get a little bit more into that thoracic spine, which is a great stretch, but we're trying to isolate the lats. So we're gonna keep more of that cat back or that rounded position. We're just gonna hang out in here for 5-6 breaths, and the intensity is gonna be dependent upon how far back these hands go onto the back of the head. So if they're down here, much less of a stretch comparatively to if they're all the way back here. So good breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Pretty simple, pretty easy flow of breath, nothing too special. However, I am feeling this a bit today, a little bit tight. So that actually feels pretty good for me. This is also called like a puppy posture. If you're doing yoga, this would be referred to as puppy posture. All right, so we're gonna come out of that nice and easy. Pretty simple stretch. So now that we've stretched our lats, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into a side lying position on the floor or a fetal position on the floor. We're going to stretch out some of our rotator cuff muscles that sit in the back. Now, rotator cuff, very common injury, but it's misunderstood that there's actually a complex of muscles that make up the rotator cuff rather than just a single entity back there. So we're going to go down onto our side. And while we're on the side, we're gonna bring our knees up. Just kind of makes it a little bit more of a comfortable position. If you wanna support your head with something, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I'm just gonna leave my head hanging. It's a little more work on my neck, but for comfort, you can of course grab something there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna reach our arm out straight, which is gonna slightly bring that shoulder out from underneath us, and then bend it up like we're gonna give a nice high five here. So we have a 90-degree bend in the elbow, and we have a slightly rolled off, but we're still keeping this shoulder over the top of that shoulder. From here, we're gonna do internal rotation, which is gonna be that press down. So that's gonna stretch the external rotators when we go internal. And we're just gonna give it a little bit of an assistance. Not very much, it does not take much. We're gonna hold that for a couple seconds. Then we're gonna come all the way out. And if you can't get back into external rotation all the way, we're gonna assist just like we're assisting on the internal. Couple seconds, and we're gonna do that about 4 to 5 times here. So we get like a 1, 2, 3, and 4 tight press there. Bring it back up, let it come out. So since I'm able to hit the external rotation pretty easy, that's not too stressful for me to execute that position. So we're gonna go back into the internal
This one is tight for me, not gonna lie. And I am on my left side. Not sure if my left or right is better. I want to say my left is better. I've had shoulder surgery on the right side, so that one tends to be a little bit tighter, but we'll see here. We're gonna go one more time back into that external rotation. Press it. If it is not able to get there, you're gonna be feeling that stretch, of course. Perfect. Pretty simple and easy to switch it up. You can just roll over. However, I'm gonna turn so that you can keep looking at me here. So knees come up to 90, elbow out, shoulders stacked, and then we're gonna go internal. Oh yeah, internal rotation on this side is much tighter. So I'm gonna work for that just a little more pressure, trying to help get a bigger stretch in the external rotators when I'm going internal. Then that external rotation looks great as well on this side. But press it down if you're not able to get there, give it a little assistance. Probably should have supported my head. I think that would have been a lot more comfortable, but here we are. So go back into the internal. Now, as I said, this shoulder for me, I had shoulder surgery on it when I was 17. They fixed my labrum, so it was not only torn, but also stretched. So they folded it, they stitched it, folded it, and pinned it. So I actually lost a lot of range of motion in this shoulder for a very long time, and I've worked very hard to regain that range of motion, mostly in extension, so up overhead was the biggest limitation for the longest amount of time. But even doing like bench press and stuff was pretty limiting, not able to go all the way down and touch my chest. The strength wasn't there, so definitely a lot better now. So big improvements. So we should be good on that.
And as I said, that's working those external and internal rotators of the rotator cuff, muscle complex in the back of the shoulder. That complex is obviously really important for rotation, but also stabilization of the glenoid joint itself, because you have some of those muscles that actually wrap around the front of the humeral head and then some around the back, so that they have this play in it that actually helps to also stabilize the glenoid joint itself, which is great because in any sport, if you take a hit onto the shoulder, we want to protect the shoulder from dislocating and also protect the AC joint, which is where the shoulder blade and the clavicle come together and make that AC joint right on top. So protecting those as much as possible through first mobility, second strengthening. Next, we're going to stretch out the front of our chest. Now, this one plays a big part into the posture of the shoulders, right? So we have the pec minor, which is a smaller muscle underneath the pec major that runs more vertically, pec major making up most of the pec. And then we have the subclavius, which actually runs right underneath the clavicle, clavius, subclavius. So we're gonna stretch those out. We're gonna go prone for this, so prone on the belly. And we're going to leave one arm slightly at 90 degrees, almost like a field goal post position, because the other one is actually going to help push as you turn. So we're gonna swing this leg over like we're throwing a knack-knack, if you're familiar with that, which knack-knack is just the opposite of a can-can. And then we're just holding that arm at the 90 degrees, which is gonna help us get that stretch. And if you move it up more, we're gonna get more into like the pec minor rather than the pec major. And if you stay down, it's a little more pec major. And also the intensity can be regulated by unrolling yourself, so not having as much of a roll. It's gonna be less intense. Of course, the more you roll over, the more intense it's gonna be. So just like any other stretch, we wanna make sure we're breathing, relaxing into the stretch, allowing it to occur rather than fighting it. We'll hang out here for another 5-10 seconds. Perfect. So that's a pretty big stretch. I really like that stretch because chest stretches typically can be a little bit challenging, like up against the door to like press and stuff like that. So this one is definitely more comfortable. So I had to take my mic off there because it's
falling off, it's not staying put. So hopefully the audio stays good in this. Should be good, but we're just gonna keep it there. So the next thing is the left side for this. So we're gonna put the left arm in roughly that 90-degree angle. Then we're gonna kick that other leg over into that knack-knack position. Now for me personally, this is it's much less of a stretch on this side. My right side, right-handed, shoulder, all that mumbo jumbo is much tighter on me. However, this side does aid a good stretch, so I'm using the other arm to actually like press in a little bit and help and get that good twist. And like I said, if you want more pec minor, you can reach the arm out further, pec major or downwards. So it just kind of depends on the feeling, but we want to make sure that we're, of course, taking in good breaths while we're doing this. So next one is actually more of a strengthening of those rotator cuff muscles as I spoke about. So we're going to stay in the prone position on the belly. We're going to go elevated on the chest, and then we're going to bring the arms up slightly backwards of the shoulders with the elbows, and we're pinching the shoulder blades in the back. So that's our W position. Outwards is our Y position. And then when we come around, our palms go to the ceiling, and that's our O, because we're making the O. So we're gonna go W, Y, wrap around, and O. We're gonna do that for 6 total rounds here. So we're gonna go W, Y, O, that's 1. And 2. This one is definitely no joke, but we get all the posterior upper back muscles, and then we get some rotation, and we come into that O for 3. 4. 5. 6. Yeah, that burns. That's definitely not for the weak there. We're feeling that one. So if you're feeling that one and you want to do it more, feel free, pause it, take a little break, and hit another round of that, because that's an excellent one. So lastly, apart with the shoulders, so what we have going with them also is the shoulder blades that we talked about, that free floating bone in the upper back attached to the glenoid and attached to the clavicle, which is then attached to the sternum. Is the shoulder blade actually plays with the rib cage, and it also plays with our upper thoracic spine. So if our upper thoracic spine is actually limited on its ability, for 1, to go into extension, and 2, to rotate, the shoulder blade will actually start to stick as well, because they should have a symbiotic relationship where when one moves, the other one moves with it. But when one becomes glued, the other one becomes glued as well. So I'm gonna use a roller, but you can use anything that has a prop to it. You can use pillows, towels, whatever you need access to, but I'm gonna use a roller. I'm gonna set this roller up to where I'm just gonna lie back on it, but as I reach backwards, I'm going to extend through my thoracic spine. I'm gonna come up a little bit. So I have the prop, pillow, towel, whatever, right beneath my shoulder blades, because my shoulder blades are gonna kind of be in the way a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna protract them. So I'm gonna bring my arms forward, and then I'm gonna reach them back, which gets them off and out of the way and allows me to reach myself backwards, okay? So I'm gonna do this for full extension and reach back as far as I can, which is a big stretch, feels really good. And feel free to support your head too. That's totally fine if you feel like the neck is uncomfortable during this position. Then I'm gonna come right back up. I'm gonna do that for 5 total rounds.
So we're gonna do that again, reach it back. Big extension, big stretch. Right back up. So that's 2. Hopefully each time you do it, you feel like a little bit more range of motion. Definitely lacking in this one a little bit, it feels like, so no harm, no foul there. It's always good to get extra mobility and stretching in myself. I tend to be a fairly mobile individual, so I try not to overstretch. I go through more ranges of motion than I do stretching, but this is kind of a stretch for some of the muscles, but also a range of motion for the spine. And go one more time. Perfect. Yeah, so that for me like feels amazing to use a roller. I really like the roller for that purpose over any other purpose as far as like rolling on my muscles and stuff like that. So I think the roller definitely has a place in you know, mobility and everything, but not quite in the way that a lot of people utilize it. However, I am thrilled to set this up. Hopefully going through this routine makes your shoulders and your upper back feel a little bit more loose. That's the idea. So if you went through this and you're feeling really good, this might be a sign that, okay, these are some things I need to do. If you went through this and it didn't feel that good, that's also a sign to do this even more. So definitely practice this routine for your shoulders, improve your shoulders. They're super important. Doesn't matter if you're doing sport or not. We need these joints to move well. So make sure that you like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next as far as these videos go. Thanks.